Let's just start with New York here. What does your modeling tell you about case count? How bad does it get? When does it peak?
Well, so there's an upward trajectory now in New York, but it's very far from lockdown levels. So, I don't think it's anything to panic over in any shape or form. Throughout the pandemic, we've seen things go up and then they go down. And, the key thing to look at is really what is the overall protection level, and especially going into the fall. And this is where, when I look at the U.S. and we look at the U.S. and New York, not in particular, but there and elsewhere in the U.S., it's quite a concerning picture we're seeing, because we're seeing booster uptake being very, very low, below 30%, right? Also in the most vulnerable high-risk groups. So that means going into the fall, the overall protection level in the US will be around 20% only, right? So we basically don't have a big protective shield coming into the fall when temperatures decline and COVID becomes a bigger risk again.
Yeah. Rasmus, do you think that will change if people were offered updated vaccines? The companies are working on them. They will become available. Once they become available, do you think that narrative changes?
I think that's a great point, Guy, because, in some ways it is kind of crazy, right? We are still vaccinating the world with the first generation of vaccines developed through the original strain that was detected 2 years ago, right? And we know Omicron and variations of Omicron is a very, very different virus, right? So I would 100% agree with you that we do need a second generation of vaccines. And I think it's been quite interesting to see what we heard from Pfizer-BioNTech recently. They were kind of been on the fence a little bit. Do we need a new generation? Do we not? And now they're actually coming out saying, yes, we think we do need a new generation of vaccines. Moderna is also saying the same. And, Sanofi, GSK, and many other providers are, do we expect to come with a second generation? And I think that will change the narrative. But that being said, we need vaccines not only to protect against hospitalization, we also need to protect against transmissions. And that's really the problem, right? We don't have very good protection against transmissions. And then immunity is waning really fast on these vaccines. And I don't think in the long run we can get everyone to be vaccinated once, twice a year.
I should point out that Pfizer-BioNTech got FDA emergency use authorization for boosters in 5 to 11 age groups. That's kind of the next, to your point, Rasmus, on the boosters. Okay, how is this then playing out in China? It seems like the rolling lockdowns are still a thing, but we're reopening parts of the economy. Can you talk to me about the different hotspots there?
Well, so China's problem is that the protection level in the highest risk groups is very low, right? And therefore China, either they let it ramp and there is a real risk of overflowing the hospitals, or they keep this kind of very restrictive, at least partly restrictive. So China is a kind of an uneven situation, but the urban centers is where we have the biggest risk and also the highest increase in cases. The numbers coming out of China is, we don't have a full as clear overview as we would like to, but I would say it continues to be a very high risk situation in China, simply because the protection level isn't there. The natural thing for China to do would really be to begin with a second generation of vaccines and start rolling that out in high risk population groups.
But if they don't do that, are we just going to continue to see surges in different cities, those cities getting locked down, numbers being reduced because basically there's no social transmission, and then it moves on to the next city? Is that the model we can expect throughout the summer and into the winter for China if they don't start administering better vaccines?
Yeah, I would say that is the most realistic scenario. Another scenario could be that they get better treatments, right? So there has been deal with Paxlovid, the Pfizer treatment that could help some of that. So if they had more of that, they could have a less restrictive policies throughout China and mitigating the disease. A little bit like we've seen in some Western countries, right? We haven't seen the same level of fierce lockdowns as we're seeing in China. So I think there is a path for China that combines vaccines, treatments, testing, and then mitigating the disease gradually, also building up some natural immunity throughout the country.